said was never touched.
Right. You know, from birth to 3, children are navigating the world trying to make sense of their universe. And the one person, you know, mom gets all the hits here, but the truth is the primary caretaker's job is to reflect the child's moods and say them back in an organizing way to help the child make sense of his universe and his internal universe, and to gradually and tenderly, a little bit at a time, introduce the child to the wonder and beauty of who they are and the reality of life, which is that problems occur, difficulties happen, and that we have limitations. Now, the damage done to the narcissist is that mom or dad, whoever that primary caretaker was, for whatever reason, could not tolerate imperfection for themselves. So they have mirrored to the child a grandiose sense of, you can do anything, you can have all you want, if you wish it will come true. You know, it's that Walt Disney intro theme, when you wish upon a star, it makes no difference who you are. Mom has so infused that into the child that there is no growing tolerance for reality. So the narcissist has grown up desperately committed to the world being this delusional, perfect fantasy universe because it is linked to his relationship with mother, who owned his survival. One writer puts it this way: the infant and mom are in the nursery masters of all they survey. The infant sees mom as an extension of himself. Now, if you don't get disabused of that over time, you become an adult who sees whatever other significant person in your life is out there as an extension of you, and you see them as loving you by mirroring back to you this delusional fantasy. You know, Mary, narcissists are the tenderest, I think, most vulnerable clients we get in our office. And when you slice through this arrogant, pushy, almost rejecting facade, you see this tiny, tender, hungry, lonely, isolated child saying, please promise me you won't leave.
Yeah, and I believe that fear of leaving, again, is connected with, if you see me as less than perfect,
yes,
promise me that that is not going to be a condition.
Yes, because one of the both unconscious and conscious dynamics between the child in those early years and the parent was, we both have to be perfect here.
Well, you know, I put together some ideas in terms of helping narcissists shift this vulnerability and sort of begin to take on some sense of self based in reality. And I thought we'd take a look at those and kind of explore each one together.
Very good.
Let's take the first few. To accept one's helplessness and limitations in life, and to acknowledge one's dependence on others. Let's take those two first.
Okay.
In terms of accepting helplessness and limitations, you know, how do we help people do that?
Well, you know, 12-step programs are good at this. I mean, they hit you right off the bat. You come in as an addict, who are, by the way, overrepresented among narcissists.
Indeed.
And the first thing you're told is, you have to admit that you're powerless over whatever this is that's ruling your life. I believe, though, that therapeutically and in the greater world, if a narcissist can experience accepting love, over time they will form a sort of foundation to begin to let reality in. And here's what I base that on. I think we're designed with this hunger to align with or relate to omnipotence. And I believe it was a God-placed design, and that we have distorted it by wanting to own the omnipotence. But if we can get a sense that we are accepted by someone greater than ourselves, which we work out with mom and dad, which ultimately translates into a spiritual connect. Yes. If we can get a sense that we're acceptable to this power greater than us, and loved and beautiful and adored, then reality is less frightening. and we can begin to take pieces of it in over time. But I believe there has to be this core foundational sense, you're okay here, your limitations are allowed here, we like you.
Yeah, it's part of that willingness to enter into our own humanity.
Exactly.
And in fact, my experience with working in recovery and in my own personal journey has been not just to learn to tolerate humanity, but to actually embrace my limitations as a positive thing. And I don't know if you're familiar with the book called Spirituality of Imperfection.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
And the basic premise was what binds us are our limitations.
Exactly. Well, you know, the beauty of art is in the twisty pieces, the flaw.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a society that's technologically driven to get it perfect.
Yes.
And then we fill our homes with things that come organically around us, rocks and stones and flowers and paintings that have flaws, because it's the flaw that makes it interesting. Yeah. And that's the task that the narcissist has to navigate. That's the thing they have to learn, that their flaws are part of what make them beautiful.
And you make an interesting point making a cultural reference, because along with some of the reading I was doing, I did see noted that we do have a focus on lack of limitations, that through science, through understanding, we eventually can conquer, figure out any obstacle that comes our way.
You know what? We've also got a developed history in this country of entitlement for the individual. You know, the American Revolution was to move away from the authoritarianism of the European standard of we're an authority, so you follow us without question. Right. We rebelled against that. Then the Civil War was rebelling against another authoritarian order, system. Then in the 60s, we rebelled against, well, then there was the women's movement, rebelling against male authoritarianism over women. Then in the 60s, there was this social activism, sort of generally rebelling against the system. And then we had in the 80s the me generation, this focus on, it's not just about the individual, it's about me and getting my needs met, me first, me first.
Right.
So our society has literally taken what should have been an atmosphere that created a place to develop really good, healthy sense of real self-narcissism, and we have expanded it to eulogize and put as those most admired among us, the most narcissistic among us. And the tragedy of that, Mary, is that the real narcissist is incapable of intimacy. So if you take this too far out on the extreme, you lose social conscience.
Yes, you do. And you lose the sense of community, the sense of connection with other people.
Yes.
I mean, you become sort of your own little universe.
You lose a sense of your own need, too. A sense of needing a God, a spiritual connection, a sense of needing the help and love and support of others. You build a society of individuals running around terrified of not being able to do it all by themselves.
And that was another one of the characteristics, was learning to give up control.
Exactly.
Learning to use structure to help us provide meaning and a sense of self. Learning to let feelings and emotions move us. So the whole idea of if I relinquish some control, I need to have a clear sense about where I'm relinquishing it to.
Exactly.
I mean, and I think that's part of it, and part of that spiritual search is, you know, if I have a history of there being a void, you know, even if I buy intellectually, oh, okay, I'm going to need to share some of control, okay, I admit my humanity. I think part of the task is really clarifying for ourselves, you know, where is this control going? You know?
Yeah, you know, part of what happens to the narcissist in therapy is as they begin to grudgingly accept their limitations and feel what it's like to acknowledge that things could go wrong, that they might not get what they want, they experience a level of depression that many of them refer to as the abyss. You said the void?
Yes.
It's like staring down into this great dark precipice, and you have no sense of anything out there to catch you or love you. And I believe that's built into us. That is designed so that we would look for something beyond ourselves.
Beyond ourselves. Yeah, actually, I have always found it a great comfort to not be a deity myself.
Yeah.
I'm bad at it.
Yes,
and,
there is a God and you're not it.
And I'm not it, absolutely. Now, this part about using structure to provide meaning and a sense of self. You know, when you took us briefly through kind of a decade review, it occurs to me that what you're talking about is a lessening of structure.
Yeah.
And that part of that resistance has to do with accepting an externalized containment.
Exactly. And that goes back to that from birth to 3 process of allowing, see, the ideal here from an object relations therapeutic perspective, the ideal here is that mother provide a container, a firm enough environment for the child to push against, to be nestled into, to come and go from, and still be accepted. If that containment was abusive, impinging or intrusive, smothering, or rejecting and abandoning, then what happens is the child doesn't trust any structure over time or any containment. And that's sort of what we're finding in our society, is that it's getting harder, it's getting more complicated to find large groups of people who really want some order that they haven't designed or crafted on their own. And our society needs order to run.
It does, it does. And part of that, and I know we're going to need to close here in about a minute, but the last piece of this was getting, you know, having people experience their own feelings.
Exactly.
And maybe part of that containment, in a way, triggers feelings, because when I come up against something, then I do become aware of whatever might be underneath that.
Exactly. You know, the goal of the containment is to hold the child's feelings so that, you know, when a 2-year-old feels anger, a 2-year-old feels murderous cataclysmic rage. And for a mother to be able to just receive that and hold it and say, boy, are you angry, isn't this terrifying, and calm the child, allows for that feeling to be there and not feel overwhelming.
Right.
And that's what you're describing.
Absolutely. Linda, I want to thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We were very fortunate tonight to have Linda McHenry with us, and I hope you'll return again. I want to thank you for spending time with us. Join us next week as we explore the legacy of emotional abandonment. I'm Mary Crocker Cook. Good night.
For topic suggestions, write to Bay Area Psychology at 1723 Hamilton Avenue, Suite A, San Jose, California 95125, or call at 408-448-0333.